Last time we spoke about Gilgulim and in the form that Neshamot come back to this world in human beings. Right? So you remember the various cases that we gave as an example of how these things happen. Obviously, there's thousands and thousands of events that were recorded, truly recorded, with witnesses and great Chachamim involved, that every detail is there clearly that it happened. Today we're going to speak about Neshamot that come down in this world, but they do not come back in human beings. They come back in animals. The Neshama falls into an animal, and that Neshama has to have its tikkun in the process through the act. So that's a much different dimension, as we'll soon see. The truth is that the Chachamim first encountered this phenomenon, or however you want to describe it, of Gilgul Neshamot in animals already at the time of the Mabul, at the time of the Dora Palaga of the Tower of Babel. There, the Chachamim tell us that when the Torah tells us that Vayafet Hashem Otam Misham Atene Kol Haaretz, that the Kadosh Baruch Hu dispersed these people across the entire land that were together, and the Kadosh Baruch Hu dispersed them. There, the Chachamim tell us that the people of that generation, of that Dora Palaga, were divided in three. The good ones among them, the punishment, everybody was punished. Right? That's the Tower of Babel, where they decided to build the tower and go up to the heavens. And we know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu mixed their language and were not able to understand each other. And he dispersed them across the land. So there we find that there were three groups of people. The first group, that was the good group of them. They had their language disturbed. Yeah, that means they didn't understand each other. They were not able to speak to each other and communicate. The second group was a group that wanted their intention was an intention of Avodah Zarah, that they were creating a god, so to say. There was a disconnection from Hashem, and they were going to run the world. So there, the Chachamim tell us that those neshamot that were around, they came down to this world in monkeys and in cats and many animals. Yeah. So that's the second. The third group was the group that said, Na'aleh l'shamayim, we're going to go up to the heavens, and the Chachamim said that they wanted to wage a war with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They said, we're going to go up on the tower, and we're going to kill HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We're going to kill him. So that was the worst world, and this is the first experience in the world, by the way. Right? So it's the first time that we have neshamot turning into animals. And the third group that wanted to go to war with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, they turned into demons. The shedim, that we know, the demons were the third group of these neshamot that came down into the mazikin, what we know as demons and the life. So this is the first time that we encounter a gigul of neshamot that comes into animals. There is a connection which we can't speak in length, but there is a connection between the very creation of animals, both animals that are pure and animals that are not pure, that are connected to becoming recipients of neshamot that have sinned and need to be fixed in whichever way they can be. So the Chachamim tell us, for example, that those that transgress the three cardinal sins of Avodah Zarah, Gilui Arayot, and Shelichut Damim, which is serving idolatry and having forbidden relationships and murder, they come back, the neshama may come back in a form of an animal that is impure, while other type of sins may come back. I mean, those three that are cardinal, they come back in animals that are impure. The whole concept of caring for animals is because of the neshamot that they may carry inside. So the fact that an animal has to be slaughtered according to the laws of Shechita is because there may be a neshama inside the animal, and therefore and the neshama will feel every, you understand that coming down in an animal is worse than coming down in a person, even though the challenges of a person may be different. As a matter of fact, the Chachamim tell us that there is a major difference, that those that come back to this world with Gilgul in a human being, they forget who they are in their past. I mean, if any one of us or all of us are Gilgulim in a previous life, we don't have a recollection when we come back in human beings. When they come back in animals, they know who they are, and they suffer the existence of who they are to what they are today inside the animal, and therefore we are worried about Tzar Ba'alei Chayim. We take into consideration the pain of an animal, which really, it's not necessarily, it doesn't follow a logic because we do slaughter animals. It's not like, we live in the Torah that stands up for animal rights. You understand? There is korbanot, and all that is for the purpose of the tikkun of the neshamot that are in these animals. So we worry about not hurting an animal. When we do a shechita, we worry to give him the most efficient and easiest death. That's why the knife has to be as sharp as it has to be. The concept that we cannot eat a piece of a living animal. It's all because there may be a neshama there, or at least there is a good part of the reason. Obviously, there's many reasons for everything that we do. But one of the reasons is because there may be a neshama there that has come down to this world and is there, and we have to treat this animal with that type of care, as we don't know that there may be a neshama inside the person. And some of the Chachamim, they tell us that this is really hinted in the pasuk Adam ki akriv mikem korban Hashem. When the Torah starts speaking about the korbanot, it says a man that offers, Adam ki akriv, a man that offers mikem, from you, korban Hashem. What's from you? The word mikem is extra. Really, it should say Adam ki akriv korban Hashem, a person that offers a korban to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Why is the word mikem included here? A man that offers from you a korban Hashem. Because the from you means that there may be somebody from you right? Some neshama like yours that is inside the animal, and that's the reason for the korban, and that's the care that we have. So this is one of the major understandings of the whole our whole relationship with animals. Being a holy people, being a holy people, we have difficulty understanding korbanot and dealing with animals. The Bet Hamikdash, we think of the Bet Hamikdash as the holiest of places in the world, and yet on the other hand, you have animals coming in and going out, and blood, and this, like, what's going on, right? Like, very contrary to what we would think a Bet Hamikdash should be. I mean, you wouldn't bring into your house, would you bring animals the whole day? Just bring them in. I mean, there is a nature to the animals that you don't want around. But we don't look at an animal in that way. We look at an animal, besides that he serves a purpose in coming to this world, and the many other reasons why korbanot are. By no means, I don't want you to walk out of here thinking that these are the exclusive reasons why we do these things. I'm just giving you another vantage point of understanding why we're so particular and why animals take up so much space in our Torah, that this is a serious consideration that we have. Now, there were circumstances that occurred very often that almost hundreds of times per generation. We may not be aware of them, but there were circumstances where these gilgulim were clear. I'll give you one of the typical examples that happened through the entire Jewish world. But we have a true story that happened with the Yaakov Hatzila, who he traveled through the whole Morocco, and in one of his trips, he had come and stayed by the person who was hosting him, and he had told him that he has to go back home for Shabbat. That means he was coming for a few days, but you should know he's not staying for Shabbat. And it's he had the normal thing is to if he's going to stay for Shabbat, the preparations, the invitations, who's coming, it's a big do. And Rabbi Yaakov Abu Hatzila made a point to tell people when he was staying for Shabbat and when he wasn't staying. It was just the normal thing to do. And he informed these people that he wasn't staying. They begged them, Shabbat is Shabbat. It's people during the week, they're working. It's not the same. And the Kedusha of Shabbat, together with the Kedusha of the Tzaddik like him, he said, no way, no way. On Thursday, he was sitting in the room that they had given him, whatever, and the door was open, and a lamb came in, and the family saw. So the people lived in farms. They had lambs outside, all kinds of lambs. And this lamb came in, and the family wanted to chase him out. It was, he's an Adam Kadosh, like the Yaakov Hatzila, an animal like this comes in, and this, he told him not leaving. So he actually came up to the thing and stood face to face with Rabbi Yaakov Hatzila. They stared at each other, and he patted him, and the animal left. So he told the people, I'm staying for Shabbat. Yeah. The lamb convinced him to stay for Shabbat. Yeah. So he told them, let's get the shochet in town. I want him to come and do a proper shechita on this lamb, and that's what we're going to eat for Shabbat. And I'm saying here for the zechut of this quote unquote lamb, so he can have the tikkun. Obviously, there was a neshama that needed the tikkun, that needed the shechita with all the proper kavanot, that needed to be eaten by a big tzaddik on Shabbat. Like, all these things were necessary in order that neshama should go up to heaven, to its final eternal place of rest. And this was a story that happened constantly, like, through the generations and through the various communities. Whenever there were tzaddikim, there were always moments of these tikkunim that were presented to them, and other happened in a much more flashy and fantastic ways. Some very, very scary. Let me tell you, you ready?
Yes.
You ready? Anyway, there is a story recorded in Sefer Hadidim that happened in Castilla, in Spain. So there, again, these are stories that are recorded to be 1,000% true. The Goyim also have thousands of stories. We're only talking about that we know that there were Chachamim involved. Otherwise, people can't imagine all that. So one day, a gentleman went to sleep, and his father came to him in a dream and told him, I want you to know that after I died, because of my many sins, I had to come back to this world to fix what's needed fixing. And they put me into an ox. My neshama is right now inside an ox. And the day has come that ox is going to be taken to the Plaza de Toros, where they have the corridas, whatever. It's not bullfights. It's the corrida. Not the running of the bulls. The corrida, where there is the animal is made crazy. They take there's these famous it's with the red flag and so some of you did not live near Spain. For those of us who lived there, this is the famous. This is where the torero is the man who makes the animal dizzy first. Then they have the people that come and they stick into them these hooks, and they start bleeding. And slowly, and the big game is that now the torero is able to kill him, get him at the right moment, at the right position, and without this to kill him. And there's thousands of people, every city where the Spanish were, there was the Plaza de Toros. Even in Tangiers they have one. So we lived with this. You understand? It's the sport of every Sunday. So he came to him and he told him, I'm going to be inside the animal that they're taking out today. And the Tsar is terrible. You know what they do? They're going to make me crazy, back and forth. And I'm going to feel everything, and this is when it works good, so those that come do a perfect job, and they stick the six things that they stick on him. But when they don't succeed, it's worse. Yeah, they have to try again, and they have to try again. So he told the son, this is what's going to happen. So do me a favor. They gave me permission because I've been so long in Gilgul that if you go and you buy the ox, you go and buy it, and if it is slaughtered and given to Talmidei Chacham, to poor people that learn Torah and to eat, then I will be saved. That was the dream, and he went to the Chachamim. He didn't know, it's not a dream that one has every day. He didn't know whether it was real, or maybe it was somebody that enjoyed these sports, and maybe he was dreaming the wrong way. They told him that it's a dream that he has to fulfill, and they helped him to go, to buy, and to do exactly what needed to be done. It wasn't, they advertised the weight of the ox. You have to understand, it's built, you understand? In the good days, they probably have names for it. They raise these oxen for a purpose. There was another story recorded with the Baal Shem Tov that there was a gentleman that owned a horse, and this horse was out of this world. They never saw a horse that works so hard. And the horse works hard in nature, but this one was really working day and night, and he had such kohot that was unbelievable. The Baal Shem Tov went to the owner of the horse, and he told him, I want to buy the horse. So the owner told him, thank you very much, but you're not the only one who wants to buy this horse. Everybody that sees this horse, they want to buy this horse, because this horse is very special. It has strength and works without a moment's rest. So he wasn't able to convince him. He wasn't able to convince him. So yeah, it was working on his head what to do, on the Baal Shem Tov, what to do. So he came back to the owner of this horse and told him, do me a favor. People owe you money. Yeah, people owe me money. So, and when they owe you money, you make them sign a document. And I owe you. Yeah? So do me a favor. Show me the IOUs that's here. So he told them, so if you're talking about the Baal Shem Tov, you're not talking just about anybody. You want to see who owes me money, who owes me money. So he goes through the IOUs that were given to him, and he pulls out one. He tells him, I want to take this one. The Baal Shem Tov tells him, I want to take this document of this person that owes you money, I want to take it. So he looks at it, he says, from all the ones you want to take, that's the one you want to take, it's useless. He says, why is it useless? He says, the person died. He died, he never paid me. And well, what's a piece of paper? What's a piece of paper worth? So he told them, you have to give me permission to take it, and I'm not returning it to you. So the man told him, take it. To me, it has no value. It has no value. Immediately, the Baal Shem Tov took the paper and he tore it to pieces, and the horse died. So he got very upset, the owner of the horse. What did you do? This was the best horse he had, and the best worker anybody ever had. as homes. So he told him this was the neshama of this person that owed you the money. He didn't pay you the money. He had to come back to this world and work for the money that he owes you. And he came in the neshama into the horse, and that's why he worked so hard, because he had to pay this debt. He had to make the money to the cent of what he owed you. And that's why I see you look at the horse as a potent horse with power and so on. And I'm looking at the neshama that is suffering every single second that the neshama is here, another piece. And therefore, now that we told the star, now we told the document, he doesn't owe you anything. He paid you already through the work, through the extra work that he gave this. And the neshama can go. And now the horse was exhausted. The real horse was exhausted. Right? The dropped dead. Had no strength. The strength was the neshama that was inside. One of the probably most known events happened not long ago in Yerushalayim, 50, 60 years ago. And it was the talk of Yerushalayim. As you know, Jews had, every community had one or two volunteers whose job was to go out to the streets and wake people up for Shachrit. They didn't have all the fancy alarm clocks that we had. And people had to be woken up by walking through the narrow streets, either knocking on the doors or they had their songs, Yeah. And this happened all over, by the Sfaradim, the Ashkenazim, they all had, it's a ritual that existed through Jewish life. Yeah. And there were various volunteers like that. As much as there were volunteers to wake up people, there were volunteers, for example, to make announcements, And there was no way to make announcements in the community like we have today. Yeah, there was no email, no internet. You had to find out. And till recently in Morocco, before we left, that there was printing and so on, just in the last century, even announcements for weddings. There was the Rach that went through the streets screaming out, everybody's invited to so-and-so's wedding. That was his job. Until they started printing invitations, but this was part of the communal life, waking people up for shachrit, for bakashot. This was a very natural thing, and it was considered a holy mission. It wasn't just like people considered that the zechut of waking for every person that wakes up. It's you get the zchuyot. It was a bit. So there was the famous waker in Yerushalayim. His name was Rabbi Shalom. And he was the official waker who went through in the early hours of the morning, much before sunrise, to start to wake people up. And he was very successful and very persistent. He was one of the best wakers that Yerushalayim ever saw. As a matter of fact, he was so famous and so efficient that people used to make in jest. They used to say a pasuk about it, and they used to say the pasuk says, "V'natati shalom ba'aretz u'shchavtem v'em machalit." I will give one of the berachot is that the Kadosh Baruch Hu will give peace in the land, and you will sleep and nobody will disturb you. Yeah, that's a blessing. So they used to say, "V'natati shalom ba'aretz," when shalom will be buried in the earth, "U'shchavtem v'em machalit," you will sleep and nobody will disturb you sleep, because he was persistent. He was the shalom that went around from door to door, waking everybody up. But this is how famous he was, and loved by everyone. One day, And by the way, he had a tremendous root, like he didn't stay within the old city. This is at the time that most of the Jewish population was in the old city. He went out to the new neighborhoods. He really, like he worked several hours to wake up people. One day, somebody who obviously did not appreciate being woken up, one of these people that do not go to pray, and yet you have this man walking through the streets singing and with special tunes and knocking at doors and remember those heads, like it sounded like knockers, like he made a lot of noise. So one day somebody took a pail of urine and threw it, and he got all wet, and nevertheless he continued doing his job until he got the chance to go to the mikveh to cleanse himself. And the story as it goes, and again I'm telling you it's a true story because the whole Bedin of Yerushalayim was involved in this. That person died that same day. The person that threw the tail on him died. And because they weren't religious, the family did not want to connect anything with them. Really the truth is that besides his family, nobody knew what he had done because people were asleep. So he was passing through dark alleys. He knew where it came from, right? And the person who threw it knew that he threw it, and maybe the few people in his house who may have known. But in the streets, nobody knew, and nobody connected anything with anything. The next day this person dies. He dies like many other people that died. Nobody knew that anything had happened. But okay, if the story would have ended there, fine. But the story did not end there. The story is that the next day he comes through the same area, and a big black dog jumps on him and starts barking. And this Shalom, he was not afraid of dogs. He had encountered all kinds of problems. So the dog kept on chasing him, and he kept on doing his thing. The dog didn't hurt him. He just kept on barking and chasing him and chasing him. And he paid no attention to it. The next day it happened again. He tried not to pay attention to it. When it happened the third time, he knew that this is not. So he went to the Bedin, and the Churba, the Yehuda Hasid there in the Atika, that's where the Bedin was. But before he did that, he took with him two witnesses to watch that this was happening. Because nobody would believe it. He knew there's a problem here. This dog is not normal that it should be chasing me like this and never happened. But also they'll tell me, maybe. So he took two witnesses with him that they should see, and that too. So in the meantime, the family was informed, and they heard the dog all the time and so on. Okay, they also made light. But he didn't want to, Shalom didn't want to make light. He went to the Bedin and he told him, this is what's happening. I don't know what it is, but I'm leaving it in your hands. So they actually went and they called the Rabbi of Yerushalayim, and he was an old man already, very old. They told him to please come to the Bedin because they had to discuss this. And he came. And he knew this Rav Shalom very well. So he told him, I have witnesses. He told him, I don't need witnesses. I know you. And I know that you're not going to make up a story like this. So they sat and they decided that this is the neshama of the person that threw the bucket on him. And they said, how could we be sure? So they said, you know what, we have to involve the family because they have to make it equal. Tell the family, go and inform the family that this dog that they're seeing coming and going could be the gigul of the neshama of the person that had just died, and they should be aware of it. So they went, and the family laughed it up. You know, you crazy people, you know, shamot, dogs, this, the other. And the dog was there. Like it was the next day, the dog was there. So they told him, call him by his name. His name, Abraham. And as soon as the dog was called Abraham, he jumped. Like it was clearly, like there was a response on the side of the dog to his family. So they had no choice. They started shaking. They saw this is not a story to make light of, and they accepted to come to the Bedin. And the Bedin decided that the family would have to make a tikkun. They told them what to read, what to say, and in the meantime, they asked them that they should provide hot drinks in the Batel Midrash of Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim was smaller than it is today. Yeah, in the Batel Midrash of Yerushalayim, they should provide at night hot drinks, and in the winter they should provide wood for heat. Yeah, and that will be the tikkun because he was obviously trying to disturb the coming of people to the Beit HaMikdash. Yeah, because that's what Shalom used to do, wake the people not to come, to learn, to pray. And his intervention was to stop that. So his tikkun is to make sure that it increases and it makes it more comfortable for the people to come. And they accepted. So the Bedin told the Shalom to go the next day. And when the dog comes to make an announcement in front of him that the Bedin of Yerushalayim met and they have found the tikkun for his neshama, and the neshama has come to its tikkun, and they told him that he too, the Shalom, has to tell them that he is mocher, the soleach, that he forgives him, and he has nothing against him. So that's what happened the next morning when he went to wake up. The dog was again there. He came and he screamed out the announcement from the Bedin of Yerushalayim, and he told them that he's forgiven, and his neshama is already in tikkun, and they say that the dog disappeared. It's not like he ran or he hid. The dog disappeared. Till today, the descendants of this person are still providing in certain Batel Midrash the hot drinks. They're still a great grandson. Right? They kept it for two, 3 generations now. They kept it, and they're still providing for them. So, in essence, we can talk about this for many, many more hours. The one thing that we have to know is that since we believe that most neshamot are in Gikul today, you should look out. Well, practically speaking, what does it mean to us? We have to look out for certain mitzvot that we have a tendency to want to keep. A person comes to this world to finish a job, so therefore there is help from heaven to push him towards finishing the job. Yeah, because otherwise the person has to come back and good again, to finish the job. So we have a tendency to go towards what our tikkun is. So we may have a tendency to do a certain mitzvah that we feel very, 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 very close to. A person should know that that's part of his mission in this tikkun. We may have a tendency to learn a certain part of Torah and we find it that Moshe Achir, who was one of the greatest Chachamim at the time of the Arizal, wanted to learn Kabbalah, and the Arizal told him don't learn Kabbalah. And at that time, Tzfat was flourishing with Kabbalah. And he told them why he was a great the great tzaddik, the kadosh, a person that was most deserving, the Arizal told him, you learned Kabbalah in your previous school. You came now not to learn Kabbalah. That you did it. You came to learn the rest of the Torah. So don't spend your time learning Kabbalah. This is what you can, So at the end of the journey of this neshama, he would have covered everything that needed to be covered, because in the previous life he did not fulfill to cover everything. So he will be able to cover everything. So if we have a tendency to a mitzvah, it's our neshama that is fully aware of what we came to this world for in this gilgul, and therefore we should specifically go and work towards that mitzvah. You find in the Gemara many times, the concept, somebody asking, what mitzvah was your father nizhar? Which one mitzvah was he careful? What mitzvah was he careful? These are big chachamim. They were careful in every mitzvah. Like the question, and it's repeated many times, people asking, what mitzvah was a special mitzvah? What do you mean? Hashem gave us 613 mitzvot, each one is special, and we have to keep each one. But the concept was that since people come back in Gilgul, and most of us are here in Gilgul, there's a certain tendency towards a mitzvah that attracts us. And that was the question that they were asking those Chachamim. But they kept all the mitzvot and they were careful in keeping all the mitzvot. The question was there something that there was an attraction to? And you get answers. Like the Chachamim answered this one, whatever, each one gave an answer where the attraction is. The attraction to a mitzvah, the attraction to an averah is also the same. It's the fact that this is what the person has to be metaken, and they're telling him, you have a tendency to do this, which is wrong, or you have a tendency to do this, which is right? Watch the tendencies. That's the only way we can understand, or the only way we can have a small hint of what our neshama needs to do in this leg of the journey. It's a long journey. It goes through, we believe that the person has to make its tikkunim in 3 gilgulim, right? We believe that the person does not come back after 3 times. So in the 3 gilgulim that the person may come, some people may never come, yeah? But the people that may come, or as we spoke many times, that it's parts of the neshama that come. And that you see it all across, even in Tanakh, even with our forefathers, that they had a gilgul of certain parts of the neshamot of other people, yeah? But whatever it is, there is a journey with several legs to that journey, where there is a purpose, and the HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us the ability, because we lack the clarity to be able to understand what gilgul we're in and what our neshama is missing. But at least the one hint that we have, and that's what the person, after all, we go through all this, we can tell all the stories in the world, but at the end of the way, I'm saying, practically speaking, a person should look at the mitzvot that he's attracted to, and at the averot that the person is attracted to. And that's the sign from heaven that this is what you hear from this gilgul. You're attracted to that mitzvah, put your effort strongly in that mitzvah, because they're giving you an opportunity to do what you're missing. You're attracted to the averah, remove yourself as far as you can from that averah, because that was the failure in the previous life. And that's the little bit of insight that we simple, very, very simple humans and mortals can have, beyond the Arizal who was able to see all the Gilgulim. Yeah, we don't have such people, but at least HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us a hint that if a person wants to think and wants to analyze himself and his life and his tendencies, he will find that there is a way to have a little bit of a vision in what the person has to do in this world, in this gilgul. So at least the journey is over, and then it starts life in Olam Haba in the way that is the eternal life that we praise so much, and Jews lived for their entire existence through the millions of Jews that came through in the thousands of years that we lived with that focus of getting to the life of